Hello there and welcome to Black Jackal Gaming. We're going to take a look at some of the top units in the Space Marines Index. We're only going to be looking at the Space Marines Index, so none of the supplements. There's a lot of data cards to go through. There's a lot of varied list of good units you can use. It includes some good combos. There's plenty of buffing abilities to get out, and overall the Space Marines are looking very strong. Now this is in no particular order, but first up we have BLADEGUARD Veterans. They have gone up slightly in points in comparison to 9th edition. If you accompany them with a Judiciar, he gives them the fight first ability, meaning in almost all instances they should get the option to fight first. They come in a squad of either 3 or 6 and they're all equipped with power swords and relic shield. The sergeant does have the option to swap his bolt pistol for a plasma or neo-volkite pistol. They come with the ability to choose one of the two following options. You can either, when in melee, reroll 1s to hit, or you can reroll invulnerable saves of 1s. Both options are quite strong, and it depends on the situation you're in as to which one you'd prefer to take. They come with 4 strength 4 attacks at weapon skill 3, -2 AP and damage 2. Now you can use the stratagem Honour the Chapter, which will give them +1 to wound rolls, and if you're in the Assault Doctrine, it gives them an additional AP to their power swords. If you are using the stratagem, you can force 12 6-up saves onto Space Marines, killing an average of 5, and if you're into Guard, you'll be killing an average of 15. So any Guard type infantry, such as AdMech, you're going to be doing a lot of damage if you're charging multiple targets. Next up we have the new STERNGUARD Veterans. They can be accompanied by either a Librarian or Apothecary. If you give them the enhancement for Bolted Discipline, they will get sustained hits 1 onto their attacks. You take them in a squad of 5 or 10 with the combi weapons. This gives them Rapid Fire 1, Devastating Wounds and Anti-Infantry on a 4+, as well as that sustained hits 1. They also have the ability once per battle, if the unit they've shot has died, they can choose to shoot another unit. Now if you're putting these guys into a target that has Alpha Moment, on average they're going to kill 6 Space Marines. However, because of the anti-infantry 4+, they're actually going to do on average 12 mortal wounds to whatever infantry target you're putting them into. So if you're targeting, say for example, a Guard squad, you can do a minimum of 12 mortal wounds damage into them, possibly even more, and this will wipe the unit, allowing you to fire again. So choose your targets wisely if you want to get that second round of shooting off. To increase their safety and mobility, you can put them in an Impulsor, which has firing dex 6. As well as this, if you're taking the Librarian, it will give them a 4-up invulnerability save, or if you're taking the Apothecary, he can bring 1 back per turn. We're bouncing over to a Firstborn squad now, the Scout Sniper Squad. They can be accompanied by Sergeant Tellian, who's an Ultramarine character. He gives them lethal hits, plus if you give them Bolter Discipline, they get sustained hits 1 as well. They come in squads of 5 or 10. They have heavy and precision on the sniper rifles, ballistic skill 3, strength 4, -2 AP, 2 damage with a range of 36 inches. So if they're standing still, they're ballistic skill 2. Add to that they're getting sustained hits 1 and lethal hits. These guys are going to push out a lot of damage onto character units. As well as this, they can't be targeted outside of 12 inches, and there is -1 to hit against ranged attacks. They can forward deploy at the start of the game, and they also have a pre-game move of 6 inches. On average, these guys are going to force a minimum of 4.5 saves onto a Space Marine character, and this will kill any character below a captain on average. If you do manage to spike a little bit high, you should have no problems killing out any ordinary characters in the game. Some of the more tougher characters, such as the Primarchs or things like Hive Tyrants, will be much more difficult to deal with, but anything below that, these guys have a real good chance of one-shotting. For extra mobility and a bit of survivability, you can put them in a Storm Speeder. You can only include 6 models in this, so it'd have to be a squad of 5 with Tellian. Sticking with Firstborn for the moment, we'll go over to the Whirlwind tank. Again, if you want to run as Ultramarines, you can accompany it by Sergeant Kronos. Kronos will give the Whirlwind a ballistic skill 2 and allow them to reroll 1 wound. Now it comes with a Vengeance launcher, which is indirect and blast, so you get in D6 attacks plus 3, plus 1 additional attack for every 5 models in the unit. This is strength 8, minus 2 AP, and damage 2. Any infantry unit that you hit has to take a battle shock test. It also comes with Storm Bolter and a one-shot hunter killer missile for a little additional damage. On average, you're going to be putting 5.6 saves into a Space Marine squad when stationary, killing on a 4 on average. On average, you're going to kill really a minimum of 6 guardsmen, potentially even more. It can also be buffed by Storm Speeders, depending on which variant it can take. If it's shooting at one of the targets that's been hit by that, it can get either an additional AP, plus 1 to wound, or the unit doesn't benefit from cover. As well as this, he's a tough boy, being T10, and you can hide out a line of sight, keeping him alive for a fair bit of the game. I'm going to jump over to the Primaris Scouts, the Eliminators. With these, you probably want to accompany them with a full boss librarian. This means that they can not be targeted outside of 12 inches. They get -1 to hit with stealth, and they can infiltrate, setting up anywhere on the board outside of 9 inches of the deployment zone. If you're given the librarian the enhancement to give sustained hits 1, it really ramps them up a bit, because they get 1 attack with their bolt rifle. It's 36 inches, ballistic skill 3, strength 5, minus 2 AP, 3 damage. It is heavy in precision, so they'll often, especially round 1, be ballistic skill 2. They'll have sustained hits on top of that, precision so they can target characters, and if you wound on a 6, the wound becomes a devastating wound. So when you're standing still, these guys are hitting on 2s, 6s exploding, and those 6s to wound are devastating. With it being strength 5, you're going to be wounding most non-character monster characters on a 3+. With Oaths of Moment, you can really buff this up, so you really hit it with every shot, and you're fishing for those 6s. At the very least, these guys are going to make the opponent hide their characters at the start of the game, potentially slowing down their advance to take midfield and stopping them from giving out the buffs and firepower that they want to give out. Right, the Desolation squad is back for 10th. It came up at the end of 9th and it was very strong, and it's still very strong again. You can either accompany them with a Primaris Librarian, Apothecary, or an Ancient, and give them the enhancement to get the sustained hits 1. They come in a squad of between 5 and 10. Now they have abilities that negates the debuffs for the out of line shooting, so you can hide these all game long if you want, but you do lose the direct shots that they can kick out as well. So the direct shots are on average 42 strength 5 shots plus blast, and the indirect is 23 strength 4 shots and between 4 and 5 strength 7 shots. That's for the strength 7, -1 AP, 2 damage. All of their weapons have blast as well. If they're targeting one of your targets that's been identified as your Oath of Moment target, these guys can really tear out some damage into them. These guys are pretty much just 240 points of death that you can hide out of line of sight, or just in sight of the target you want. They're hard to target themselves. On average, without Oaths of Moment, they're killing 13 Space Marines around, and with Oaths of Moment, they're killing 26. But this can spike even further with the sustained hits. These guys are currently a must in all competitive play. You'll see most people running a minimum of 2 squads of these buffed up, so they can lay down some serious damage in turns 1 or 2, and then mop up any additional units just trying to hide on objectives later on in the game. We're on to one of the more humble previous troop choice units, the INCURSOR squad. There's no need to take a character with these guys because they don't really buff them up too much. What they're giving out buffs to them, you don't really want to buff. It's a waste of character and a waste of points, so you want to run these without. They can come in either a squad of 5 or 10, and they do have the ability to select one of the units that they've targeted, and any other units targeting that unit will get +1 to hit. The damage output's pretty mediocre. They've just got strength 4 no AP bolters that ignores a bit of cover and assault, so nothing to write home about. The Haywire Mine is quite good if anyone's within 3 inches, can give out some mortal wounds. They can't infiltrate anymore, but they do start off with Scout 6, so they're easy to hide from turn 1 and then pop out to give that buff out onto whatever target you want. Without the +1 to hit, you probably wouldn't take them, but it's a very spicy bonus, especially if you're targeting a unit with Oaths of Moment in round 1 and it's a tough to kill target. That +1 is really going to ramp up your ability to take it down. Now we're on to the Gladiator tanks. All three variants are quite useful, but the Lancer is the one that stands out the most. You don't really need to buff them with a character, but a Primus Tech Marine can be useful because you can select them to get +1 to the hit roll, and you can heal them as well. That's if you can keep up with them. So part of their abilities is that you get to reroll a hit, wound and damage roll per turn, which is quite nice with the Laser Lance Destroyer. They come with some basic strength 4 weapons that aren't really worth talking about, but it's the Laser Destroyer that we really want to talk about. That comes with a heavy keyword. It's 72 inches, 2 attacks, weapon skill 3, strength 14, AP -4, D6 +3 damage. So it's a really hefty boy, especially when if you're stationary, your weapon skill 2, you can potentially re-roll one of the ones. You're wounding most things on 3s, some things on 2s, and you've got a re-roll built in there. And as well as that, the -4 is going to stop the likes of Space Marine tanks from having to save. That D6 +3 damage is very nice. It can potentially one-shot itself in the mirror matchup. On average, without Oaths a moment, this guy's going to kick out 9 to 12 damage into heavy tanks. He's toughness 10 himself, so he's quite tough to kill for armies that aren't rocking out much anti-tank and relying on strength 8 and 9 weapons. And last, by no means least, are the Primaris Storm Speeders. It comes with 3 variants and all of them are really useful. Every single one of them has its use and you can take them. None of them are really ones to be left on the shelf. So first up we have the Hell Strike. This is the anti-infantry one. It comes up with a plethora of keywords to help maximize damage against light infantry targets. So the weapons come with Blast, Rapid Fire and Twin Linked. As well as this, the Onslaught Gatling Cannon comes with the Devastating Wounds. Now the damage output is okay to good, and they all come with the 14-inch movement and the toughness 9, so very hard to shift, especially with the 11 wounds. But what you're actually looking for are the abilities they kick out. So the Hail Strike, you can select one of the units that you've hit this turn, and anyone else within this phase, they will receive an additional -1 AP to all shots going into that target. Unless the target unit has an invulnerability save, you are really going to minimize the chance of your opponent making saves for that unit. The next one is the Hammer Strike. This is an anti-light tank unit because it carries a plethora of strength 9 shots. So it can go into more medium tanks as well, like the likes of the Rhino, but anything above that you're going to lose a bit of efficiency. The ability for the Hammer Strike is that one unit that you've targeted, any other unit that shoots into that unit, that phase, that unit will not receive the benefits of cover, so will not get that +1 to their save. The Thunder Strike is an anti-tank. It's quite good into most tank variants because it comes with strength 9 and strength 12, so if you are going to the more light medium tanks, it can really kick out a lot of damage into these guys, but into the tougher units as well, it can hold its own. The ability that this comes with, if you target a vehicle or monster unit, you can select one of these units and the rest of your army will get +1 to wound into this unit. So if you're bringing out any of these options and you're using it against a really tough target and it's got the Oath of the Moment on them, especially linked up with something like a Desolation squad, you can really bring down these tough units with absolute no issues whatsoever. Wounding something on a 3 and 4 rather than a 4, 5 or 6 really does help to drag down these tough units and beat them to death. So that's all the units we're going through today. There's many other units in the index that's very good. Like I said before, the Space Marines index is strong across the whole. There's not many units you can look at and say that is complete and utter trash. All the units that I've included so far are very reasonably priced. Most of them are probably a little bit undercosted, so they might go up at some point. The only units in the Space Marine index that really aren't that great are the ones that are just a little bit overcosted for what they do, such as the Redemptor Dreadnoughts. That coming in at 220 points for its output isn't great, but all the ones on these lists, they give you such versatility, flexibility in how you want to operate, as well as kicking out damage, buffs and debuffs, you name it, these guys do it. Thank you for watching the video. If you have any comments, then pop them below in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, then please hit the like button as it greatly helps the channel. Hit the subscribe button to see any future Warhammer content. Take it easy and see you next time for more grim darkness from the 41st millennium.